Avery claimed a mere 262 residents. The biggest town in the county, St. Mary's, population 2,234, was 50 miles to the west and halfway across the Idaho panhandle from Avery. Montana was about the same distance from Round Top, but to the east. The nearest towns in that direction were on the far side of the steep Bitterroot Divide, across a sea of heavily forested green mountains. A handful of woodsmen, miners, and trappers knew their way across those mountains. They were welcome to use the few cabins that could be found, but they didn't steal things from the spare little buildings. Brown had discovered the break-in at Round Top a day earlier when he arrived to shovel snow from the roofs of the buildings. He had left Avery early in the morning, but returned, making the 30-mile round trip on foot. The burglary had shaken him, and he had hurried on the return trip, exhausting himself. He staggered as he crossed the concrete bridge over the St. Joe River at Avery's edge. James, who worked at the Avery Ranger Station while Round Top was closed for the winter, saw Brown as he came across the bridge. He hadn't expected Brown to return for 2 days, and he hurried to meet the fatigued man. "What's wrong?" James asked.
"Been robbed,"
Brown panted.
"Someone broke into the station."
"What?" James exclaimed.
They took my radio,"
Brown continued. "Did you see who it was?"
"No. They were gone when I arrived."
James immediately decided to go to Round Top the next day. He asked Brown to go with him, and also decided to take Paddy McIntyre, an Irishman who had worked for the Forest Service for years. The 3 men left for Round Top before dawn, driving south from Avery on the Kelly Creek Road, which climbed rapidly as it left the canyon of the St. Joe River. Round Top's elevation was just short of a mile high. It was snowbound and would be until June. The 3 men drove until the snow was too deep to take their pickup any farther, then strapped on their snowshoes and set off for the ranger station, which was still 9 miles away. They were used to walking long distances. They made good time. About 4 miles from Round Top, the road turned downhill. They picked up their pace and maintained it when the road climbed again. Thick stands of spruce, larch, and Douglas fir gave way to dark green subalpine fir. James, Brown, and McIntyre paused at the edge of a clearing. The ranger station sat 100 yards away at the far end of the open area. The round-topped mountain from which the ranger station got its name towered above the handful of buildings. "Paddy, I want you to check the woods around the clearing for tracks," James said. "Maybe you can pick up the thief's trail. Let us know if you find his tracks. Bill and I'll look around the buildings and grounds."
"I'll keep within earshot,"
McIntyre said.
"Give me a yell if you find something."
He walked off toward the brush. When James set his pack-sack down in the ranger station office a few minutes later, he wondered whether McIntyre had had any luck. The slender little Irishman was an unconventional, uneducated sort who had been around Avery for years, running trap lines in the winter and working as a Forest Service lookout in the summer. His disdain for soap and water was legendary, as were his woodsmanship and his quirks. A quarter of frozen venison hung over the stove inside his cabin at Bathtub Mountain during the winter. The rising heat from the stove thawed the meat just enough so that he could carve off a steak and drop it into the frying pan when dinner time came. McIntyre was known for his tracking ability, and as James set to work inside the office, he felt sure the Irishman would find the thief's trail if a trail were there to be found. "Bill," James said to Brown, "build a fire in the stove and heat some snow in one of the kettles. I'm going to need some water." James opened the flap on top of his pack and took out a sack of plaster of Paris mix. Using a pair of scissors he found in his desk, he carefully cut open the bag. Earlier, as he and Brown walked to the ranger station office, James had noticed tracks beside the building. He wanted plaster casts of them. As he poured the powder into a bowl, James wondered how the thief had approached the station. Maybe